Hello, I think we got a fabulous video for you today. We're going to be taking a look at the Arctic F12. It's been in a bunch of videos and I realized I never actually did a review on it, so let's do it today. Well, we got the F12, pretty standard fan. Let's move on. So the first test is the case simulation test. We've seen it before, but if you're new to this channel, 4 key measurement locations to indicate 4 key types of computer cases. This assumes an air-cooled system, kind of like the picture above. Now, the 6-inch mark is for smaller cases, so ITX type builds, very short, or short throw distance. Like you had a GPU, you had fans at the bottom of your case, and you're blowing air from the bottom up to the top towards said GPU. Then you have the 9-inch mark, compact towers. Think a case that would barely fit an ATX motherboard, not a lot of extra room in there, front to back airflow, you get the idea. The 11-inch mark, standard mid towers, 320mm class fans or 360 AIO. And then you have the 14.5-inch mark, truly large towers. Something that would be able to hold 340mm class fans. I like the Fractal Design Torrent as a good example of that size computer case. So we need something to compare against, so I have the control fan to space 3 parts A12X5 to 1 part A14 to create a blended 130mm class fan to compare every single fan I've tested up against. And I also have on here the P12, which is kind of the pressure option from Arctic as sort of their baseline comparison. And, well, the F12 performs very close to my control fan, but ironically the P12 performs better at my noise normalized result than the F12. So just get the P12. At 100% PW fan signaling, well, the P12 once again is basically tied hairs better depending on which size computer case you're taking a look at, better than my control fan. I'm calling it equivalent. The F12, a little bit under it. What's impressive is the RPM it's running at to produce said airflow. It just shows the blade design is very effective at moving air, and it is an airflow design. It's also quite a bit quieter than the other fans, so again, very impressive. Comparing it to other fans, a little cross sub-sample selection. Noise normalized results, very middle of the pack. That's very good. This is a pretty good selection of fans, and I put in a couple lower rated fans as just a sort of a comparison standpoint, we could say. So it's doing really quite well. Taking a look at it in a bar graph form, again, upper middle. This would be the best, something like 28 fans or something. I don't remember how many are on this graph. You can count if you want to. But for 120mm class fans. So it's doing really quite well in this at 6 and the 11-inch mark. And it's averaged between the two, or 3. Taking a look at my 18 decibel mark, so it's just a little bit higher. Again, it's noise normalized, canceling out room sound. And once again, it's holding up incredibly well and, well, sitting pretty well towards the top. So that's indicating that it's doing well. So, I mean, it's a pretty good pick. If you're wondering why this area is blocked out, it's because I had an error on there, fans that I hadn't tested, but I just put in random numbers for, just so I could have it listed for future testing. And it got on the graph. It's kind of funny, actually. Hindsight. Anyways, at this higher noise level, it is towards the top of the graph, doing really quite well. 100% PWM fan signaling. This is where the fan falls back a bit. It's still doing fairly well, fairly effective, but its maximum RPM, it just can't overcome physics, and other fans that'll spin faster, significantly so, will outperform it here. But it does remarkably well for what it is, and it does do significantly better than other fans that can spin faster than it. So again, a very effective design. And bar graph form at a fixed RPM. Noise is not taken into account here, but I do have the decibel reading that I got for this specific RPM. And you know, its position is, what's that, 5th place. Very, very good. And if you're taking a look at the top 5, its noise level is right in line with where you'd expect it to be. So it did well. at 1,500 RPM. It's not really technically spinning at 1,500, but I call it close enough that, well, it's close enough. Still a very top-ranked fan. If you take a look at the noise level, it's actually quieter than a lot of the fans above it. So again, a very effective design. And if we compare to like the P28, which is one of the top-rated fans that I've tested, it's doing a little bit better than that, even though the P20 is technically moving or a little bit quieter than it. Taking a look at the 9-inch mark, and we got airspeed versus decibel rating. And right there, sitting in the middle, is the F12. It's very effective, very efficient, not too noisy, moves quite a bit of air. I'm calling it a win. Now, for a complete list of testing, I did run it through my air cooler. This is not a cooler-focused fan. It's not designed for that. It's more for case airflow. But for completeness, I test every fan the exact same way and show it off at what it can do. So I slapped it up against my air cooler, and at this time I'd also like to thank my YouTube members and Patreons. You guys are awesome. It was thanks to your all support that I was recently able to acquire a radiator to add that kind of testing into my methodology. Unfortunately, this fan was tested a long time ago, and it's probably been more than a year. And so I don't have the results for how it went through radiator, because I did the testing before I got the radiator. But from other fans I have tested, they line up very closely. There's only about a couple decimal points of airspeed difference. Mind that can have a big effect on temperatures, so I don't want to discredit that, but they line up very closely, so I'm calling them effectively equivalent for right now. This isn't to say that thermal capacity is the same, but I'm calling the airspeed through it, so the resistance to the airflow would be equivalent. So once again, I want to thank my YouTube and Patreon members. If you're looking for a way to support this channel, hitting the subscribe button is a great start. I can't thank you guys enough for just doing that. But, well, the channel costs money. It costs money to buy fans, to be able to get a test system, to start getting thermal data. All of it costs money. So if you do have the means in the ends, think about, well, becoming members or Patreon or throwing a super. It's greatly appreciated. But let's get back to the regularly scheduled program. RPM versus airspeed is this left graph. That's basically a blade efficiency graph. And the F12 it actually starts off worse, and then it gets slightly better than the control fan, and then it kind of drops back again. But again, it's limited RPM. It just doesn't keep up. I imagine that as the RPM actually increases, it would fall back, but we'll never know because, well, there isn't data for it. In terms of its noise efficiency doing this, well, the fan is, in this test, noisy for the performance that you get out of it. It almost catches up to the P12 and the control fan, but then it falls back again. So really indicating that its blade design is really an airflow fan, not a case, or not a case fan, not a cooler fan. How does it rank against other fans in a subsample selection? So the red line here is my 10 decibel noise normalized mark, while the blue is the 18 decibel mark. And, well, it's in the middle. Actually, it did surprisingly well. It did better than the G12 from Thermalright, which is a top value pick. But here's the P12. It's sitting quite a bit better than it. And of course, the top rated one is the P28. Now we're doing a fixed RPM. This is the weighing factor over here on the right side that I used for the calculation. And the F12 is well towards the bottom. Jumping up to 1,500 RPM, well towards the bottom once again, indicating that this is just not a fan you throw in a cooler. It might work and suffice while you're waiting for a new fan to come in, but I wouldn't rely on this fan to cool down your CPU if you have other options. At 100% P12 fans, well, it's last of this grouping. There may be other fans that rank worse than it that I just didn't include on the graph, but of the ones that I included on this graph, it is the worst. Now we got that airspeed versus decibel rating graph, and we see that it just At lower RPMs, it doesn't have the grunt, the grip to grab onto the air and force it through. Once RPMs get high enough, it kind of works okay, but as the RPMs increase, it once again just falls behind it. Its design can't generate the kind of pressure that you need for cooling down a fin stack or a radiator or anything like that. Now we have my CFM test. CFM testing is very simple for me. You got a tube, you got a fan, you slap the fan up against the tube, you blow air down it, and you get CFM. In the future, I do want to make the test a bit more advanced, a little bit longer tube, that sort of thing, but unfortunately, well, once again, we're into that circle of it costs money, and where do I focus on first to upgrade my testing methodology? So I'm going to test system first. Anyways, you got the F12, and here, oh, one other note before I forget. This negates the fact that because you're blowing air down a tube, some fans have a tendency to shoot air off to the sides rather than creating a nice focused airflow. So the tube hides all those features. So it basically makes all fans look very similar. So now that I remember to say that caveat, the F12 actually does better than, well, I would expect. Normally fans all line up almost perfectly against my control fan. The F12 does better than it. That means it's a very good fan. When we take up the noise data, so that airspeed or CFM versus decibels, the F12 once again starts off a little bit low but catches up and stays pretty close in line. So it's indicating it does okay, kind of like the P12. Compared to other fans, the F12 is shifted towards the bottom in noise normalized results, indicating that even though the previous graph we saw it as fairly effective, where the noise normalized value actually kicks in, it just doesn't compete at the same performance level as many other fans. So it ended up falling behind the where we want the control fan and other fans to sit. At 100% PWM signal, again, it just kind of lacks the grunt. It needs a little bit higher RPM to really compete. And now we're taking a look at how it does in that airspeed or CFM versus decibel rating. And, well, for its limited RPM range, it sits in the middle of the pack, which is kind of funny because, as we saw from the other graphs, it didn't compete very well. But if you take a look here, this is about the 10, so 10.5 is, not too far off, but there are just a significant number of fans that do just a little bit better than it. So when we narrow down the selection, a lot of fans end up doing better than it, even though when we take a wider look, so I may not have included as many fans on this graph, I did include them from more places on the graph, so good to worse. So it's a very average type performer, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It does perfectly fine. So effectively, this is a $10 fan value proposition. Does performance per dollar. It isn't actual performance, so keep that in mind. It is just a ratio of how much performance you get for a dollar. So as an example, if a fan had really crappy airflow, so let's say, why not say it's, I don't know what would be really crappy airflow. I'd need to look at the other graphs, but let's just say really crappy airflow. If it was cheap enough, it would look really good on this graph because that's how value proposition works. So I do recommend you take a look at the performance data and then picking out which fan will best suit your needs based on how much you're willing to spend on your system. So the F12 does sit upper middle, but there are fans that do significantly better than it in terms of value. So they're just a bit more cost effective. But it's in a overall pretty good position, I would say, both at the 6 and 11 inch marks, noise normalized results. For CFM testing at noise normalized levels, towards the upper part, there are fans that do significantly better than it. But it's overall doing better than average. Not by much, but a little bit. At 100%, it falls back. We already know this. Limited RPM range, but still actually not terrible. Not a terrible value there. Through the cooler, bottom middle, it's cheap enough that it actually did pretty well, surprisingly well. But there are many fans that are much better value that actually perform better than it too. So you can ignore this one. And that brings us to the raw data. This raw data does belong to me and my channel. If you want to use it for your own personal use, you may go ahead and do so. But anything that you can gain monetary income off of the data, I do ask that you reference me and my channel, because it takes a lot of long hours to generate the data, do the graphs, and all this kind of fun stuff. I like the data part, in all honesty. The F12 does it get a recommendation? Kind of, yeah. It performs well. If you have it, you're fine. Keep using it until the bearing goes or whatever. Buying it new, I would probably buy something else that's a bit more versatile, but that's me. Like the P12 can be used in any part of the system, and it does just fine. It's not too much noisier. It can go in the cooler. It can go in the case. It does well. Well, this is just a case specialist, and that's it. So that's my thought on the fan. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with what its job is. It just is limited in that regard. So if you have it, use it. I see no reason to make e-waste for this fan, assuming that it's working just fine. Onto this channel. If you're looking at ways to support me, like I said earlier on, becoming a YouTube member or a Patreon does go a long way. I know it's a hard thing to ask for, to give money to some random person on the internet, which I know I am, making these videos. But, hey, I understand it. But I've done a lot of testing. I've done more than 160 fans, I think, at this point. So I think I've proven a track record. I want to include more testing. In order to get there, I do need this channel to make some money. I don't know where it's going with that. Anyways, I know it's a hard thing to ask for. So if you can't, don't want to, hitting that subscribe button, it goes a long way. It really helps this channel gain more traction. Throwing a like, it's up to you, but again, really appreciate it. You got questions about my test methodology, questions about fans, what I'd pick, whatever. I have a Discord page. I'm pretty much in the chat. I'll answer questions or whatever. Anyways, if there are other fans you want me to test in the future, leave it in the comment section down below. Yeah, have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Computer Tech and More.